Hello, Steve.
Hey, Rowan.
How are you?
I'm good. Figuring out Zoom. Yeah.
So my Zoom. I haven't gone back to the professional after they canceled my
Account. Yeah. That was good. I've just been playing around a bit more with folium and maps. I think I was going to try and wind back the version and just see if previous versions, did work. But I haven't managed to do that yet because as soon as I touch my Jupyter environment again, it fails to import folium. Still seeing really strange behavior.
That's
and then I can
weird.
open Python in a terminal and just say import folium and it imports straight away. So it's in the environment. It's there. It's somewhat Jupyter isn't seeing. I think there might be something still broken on my machine in terms of the kernels. Or the kernel's not refreshing.
Yeah, that's fair. I've always, or the way that I've done it is installing Jupyter outside of the Conda environment. And so I have one Jupyter lab thing, and then it's working above the kernels.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Above the environment.
Above the environments, yeah.
Yeah.
But I have no idea if that's actually like how you're supposed to do it.
I have been doing that, and I've been taking the approach where you create any Conda kernel you like, and then you use the IPyKernel module to then, create any Conda environment you like, and then use the IPyKernel module to wrap that environment into a kernel, and then you can sit in your base environment, and then you just select the appropriate kernel from inside Jupyter once it's launched. I had been using that method as well.
But that's just not working for you anymore.
That all got broken before, and I haven't gone back to that yet because I've cleared everything out. So that will be the next protocol, I think, is to try that.
Yep. I do know that Soggy Kang was using Folium early days. This was like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and so it was working. And I went and looked at their source that they export, and at that time they were doing it differently than how they're doing it in the latest Folium version.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit disappointing, but no big deal.
We'll see if we can get it working again.
Yeah. Deep into Word. Looking at reference codes and all sorts of stuff. So anyways.
Reference codes? You mean citations?
I don't know what they're field codes inside of Word is how they do dynamically embedded text. And it's just seems like a bit of a mess. Well, no, it's not a mess. It's just
difficult. I never used them for that sort of thing. I mean, obviously for table of contents and certain list of figures and some of those accelerations that gets you into fields, no? But then actually using them for specific equation references and
they're really it's really hard to do, honestly. Like it's still like quite intensive to do it. I am like having flashbacks to writing my undergrad thesis, which I did in Word, and that was I remember spending a lot of time on that, which was well, I don't know, a thing.
Yeah.
And then it's very easy to change styling accidentally in like one paragraph, and then getting that out is just difficult. So there's like, you're thinking about all of these extra things when you're in a Word doc that you just take away from your actual train of thought, basically. So hopefully we can get rid of all that, but also support pretty good export to to word, and one that actually can be used on the other side, which I think will be good.
What do you mean used on the other side?
Like instead of just like a plain text, like we're actually using the things that were like the field codes instead of saying just table one. And
so you end up with a dynamic document in words terms.
Yeah.
You think it'll round trip?
I've been thinking about that. I certainly haven't. And then this is another piece that I'm wondering about, is if we should be using FanDock more potentially, because right now we're sort of avoiding that world, or not avoiding it, but it's not, we're not using it. And I know that they have a whole lot of different export capabilities, and it might be worth actually diving into that a little bit more
and seeing what it can do.
Yeah. Because if we want to do like EPUB or jats export, for example, that's a whole. Jats is the standard for scientific publications, I guess. It's the XML format that scientific publishers use for their content.
Okay.
Yes, it's a structured XML. And like a lot of the publishing workflows that exist today are all based around jats. So, scoped XML stuff. I don't know, you might have seen that happening in our like rendered abstracts. Actually, I don't know if you saw that, if you've seen that come up ever, is there's sometimes like a jats :p inside of an XML thing in front of some abstracts.
Yeah.
Oh, anyways, it's there.
In Curvenote.
In Curvenote, yeah. So like when we pull the information from a DOI server, occasionally it has an abstract attached, and that abstract is often formatted in with or like the data structure is a jats data structure, and we're just treating it as a string and throwing it into React. Yeah, the jats reference manual is like 100 pages long, and it's not a fun read.
Like everything well spec'd, yeah.
Well spec'd, and like, I mean, it doesn't have any. Well, I mean, it's a data structure, but it doesn't have any idea of dynamic, interactive, computational, any of that stuff. So it's, I feel like it's not the thing of the future, if that, and I doubt that it will ever become that. And so that means that you need to look at something new. And I don't know if you're all that much up on Stencilla as a.
No, I've heard about it.
I'm just going off on a rabbit hole. Because this is one of the things that Stencilla does really well. You have disabled screen sharing.
I did it. There you go.
So they what they call it is like semantic themes, which is pretty similar to the ideas that we're playing with. But I think they're working with eLife. And so if you look at, and I'm not sure if this is Stencilla or eLife specifically, but if you actually look at the code here, this isn't quite as nice as I thought it would be. Never mind. They're not using this export. Sorry.
Mhm.
It's their schema. I'm sure they have a. So they have a JSON LD schema for articles, and they're the HTML that they put out is pretty similar to this. So this is using linked data schema.org data types for like to annotate XML or HTML, I suppose. And that means you can do all sorts of stuff on top of it, which is a little bit better.
Yeah, and it's all R.
Sorry?
Is it all R?
No, I think
there's R markdown in here. I guess it depends what you're computing.
I think those are. I'm not actually sure what those are. I think they're client libraries on top of the schema.
Okay.
But they've basically defined these various items. Well, they're extending schema.org, which is I think Google and others are in charge of schema.org, or W3C, I think, signs off on it. And then that can have extensible schemas under it. And then you can export to all of these different things. Which is, it's kind of, well, I don't know, it's super professional. And a really good library. And I think they're working with publishers at that level to ensure that they can migrate off of potentially jats onto this other definition.
Yeah,
or at least
something. Yeah, something that combines. Well, because they're combining compute and the writing process as well, no?
Yeah, they are also doing executable research articles, which I think has definitely some similarities to what we're doing. Which is cool. Anyways, I thought that was kind of, it's worth keeping an eye on. And at some point, I think our schema maybe merges or uses some of their technologies as well.
Cool.
Yeah, because it would be great if we could get acceleration from that side of things.
Yeah, and that's linked to. Does that link to Git? No. They seem to have their own. They have their own history in snapshotting.
On like the service that they provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're more about archiving and executing computationally reproducible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so less about sort of the process of building it as you're going. Yeah.
Wow. Lots of shortcode buttons.
Lots of what? Well, intriguing. Oh, you're executing this now.
Yeah.
Hey, you're doing Phoebe basically.
Yeah. Ready to run document. I run that in isolation. Just run the whole thing. One of 195 code nodes. Sure. The import block. And oh. And I kind of want to switch off all the clutter,
Yeah.
Just see the number.
But
I guess this is R, is it? No.
Yeah, this is our
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to see that they're like embedding all of that, like the variables, which is exactly the same stuff that we have, right?
Yeah.
With our variable creator. This is
I guess this is all from a single consistent R context for the whole document.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like maybe a little.
Yeah. So I mean, what's the context there? Because that's foreign code essentially. No?
As long as they're images, they can live directly in line. Like same with our safe HTML outputs.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, and this is the farthest that I've ever seen someone go with like schema.org. I think it's like RDF, or I think this is RDF XML.
Yeah,
it's RDF, and so that's like embedded inside of the XML here, which is actually a self-describing data format.
This is all safe stuff because the code is basically shunted back to the session. What comes back is treated as strings.
Yeah.
It can be sanitized, no?
Yeah, totally. And I don't think that they have like interactive components inside of here.
No. Well, it doesn't look like it. Not in this one.
And this, yeah. And I guess I don't know if I believe in this feature of like an executable research article that like I think that there's very little value in actually pressing run versus the static output. I think that it is helpful to dive a level deeper.
But you should be able to run it if you want to run it, but you shouldn't have to run it to consume the article, I don't think.
Yeah.
As well, it sort of becomes a barrier to what can go up there, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. I was tweeting earlier today, because that's a thing I do now, about there was a biology paper that was talking about reproducibility and machine learning stuff, and I like tweeted that it wasn't open access, and Nature Methods, I guess, responded, and and they made it open just for me and themselves.
Did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Nice.
Yeah, and they like, I mean, they talked about in their sort of the parts of reproducibility and how it is absolutely a spectrum. And this idea of an executable research article, I feel like any large scientific stuff requires processing. And so
Exactly.
you're never going to actually do that
No, no, no,
on demand. Like that doesn't seem like a
no.
good idea.
That's about good practice, and there being a consistent package there where the data is available in the right version. There's data versioning, maybe.
Yeah,
There's an environment. There's everything needed to do that, given the dependencies of the project.
yeah, totally.
So if you need a nuclear accelerator or something, you've
Yeah,
got to
or
have
a
one.
supercomputer. Yeah, yeah.
But everything else needed once you've got that resource should be there.
Yep.
And then this is more about making the the results more consumable, because you've done that massive run, and imagine that massive run only actually results in a data frame that's
Yeah.
1 meg.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
that, which is incredibly valuable data, then that can be put in something which can actually be explored, sliced, diced by anybody without
Yeah.
having to go through the data analysis themselves.
Yeah.
It can just be set up, and you can have some wonderful Altair plots for a
Yeah.
variety of ways of exploring for the data.
Yeah. And then you're talking about like light interactive exploratory computation, which may still require a Python kernel, but that's like just so that the scientists can actually write that interactively.
Yeah, and so people consume it. I mean, it depends on the Altair would stand alone, but maybe some
Yeah,
other stuff would need the kernel to run. But then you're only
agree.
talking about pandas and the plotting library. You're not
Yeah,
talking about the specialized computational libraries.
yeah.
It's
It's
sort
like
of
basic sci-fi
a
stuff.
standard stack. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so like that's where I see a lot of value in bringing uh, Jupyter Light or Pyodide into like directly
The document. Yeah.
into here. Yeah, because that I think is actually as much that you need,
Mm,
and you shouldn't really need anything else.
no. This is nice though. The site feels nice. I like this. CC by or CC. I like that icon. I don't know what it does. Okay, it's open access marker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more that we need to do with our header stuff.
Yeah.
And in
Table's nice.
here, like showing the code and hiding the code and that sort of thing.
Yeah, an informational table rather than a data table.
Yeah, definitely need tables. Yeah, I was
Cool.
thinking
What does that do?
possibly that could be actually a good project for Yushi to handle at some point soon.
Yeah.
And this is also like a really different way that they're doing it, because they're very much focused on the final paper rather than the project, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And then these are like across the board check-ins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very cool. No idea what some of these things are. Oh. Okay, it's a folder full of images.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, this is just like access to part of a bucket online, right? And then just like listing the contents, and then just being able to put that in various places.
Yeah.
Which.
Cool.
lots of cool stuff in here. I think they've sort of like picked a different direction than us in terms of focusing very much on the final output product.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Boom. What else is going on? This is all going on. The new website. This looks amazing. I love this too. This is profile now. That was when I'm signed in. Yeah. Yeah.
So we can deploy JavaScript basically to this page, which is great.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's a lot clearer what's going on and what Curvenote can do compared to the last.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Parallax templates. It's good because it's all the same content. That's what it is. We're just in lovely different templates. And the 2-column ones work quite well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And then you get that. And then what happens if I press that?
It just goes to the profile right now. I do think that we could have a better onboarding.
Yeah.
Like basically that should trigger a modal inside of.
Well, I can start us up on a paper template in sort of a normal onboarding flow.
Yeah.
And that could get us into paper world.
Yeah.
And then if we had a pre-configured job once, already attached with this template selected, then I guess that would be the right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it goes to /start, I suppose now. And then with some query parameters that.
What's crazy is I'm in the wrong place.
You've been working on the staging.
Yeah.
It's basically the same.
Yeah.
I should actually change the
color.
Make sure that is, well, could do the color or the just ensure that the robots.txt for Google is not indexing our staging site.
Yeah. Cool. And recent changes were exactly around that, weren't they? So we've got the new website, which I think explains a lot better way what is going on. You can schedule a demo. First, you want a demo. And I like the way we're going into the different areas where we can help people, specifically the technical writing, specifically the Jupyter, because before it was really Jupyter was the prominent thing. It was like all Curvenote and then Jupyter, and now we're starting to expand on the different things people can do.
Yeah, totally.
Because we're totally geared up now, I think, to be able just to do writing. If you're not using Jupyter, you still get a huge amount of value.
Yeah, and I think that's well, just a lot of the reason that folks were coming in the door over the last few days is around the writing side of it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get Word up on that.
Word's a huge thing. It's huge, and
well, it's 90% of scientists, and I was looking at some submission criteria for a journal yesterday, and they only accept Word.
With some, I remember exactly the same way I was talking to the geothermal folks. about their conferences and journal, and it was like, what, LaTeX? What? Yeah, of course it's Word. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
So Taylor remember EndNote. Oh my god, I haven't used EndNote in 20 years. It was.
Yep.
It wasn't. It was, yeah. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, I feel like
Very cool.
That's very true.
So the other part then, isn't it, that other than just the website and the rebranding, there is obviously all the new nav changes recently and the simplification of the app, taking some of that sort of extra project page out. But now is the onboarding experience, which anybody can hit start to create a new project, really.
Yeah,
And then we've got these.
Yeah.
With keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
And I guess we can maybe expand these over time.
Yeah.
And definitely want to continue to improve the content there. But the idea is I make it public. Cool. And the idea is this, as I said, we get to a project with content while we're waiting on the thing being set up. We can extend this as well and show different things and have an onboarding tour of the app. And then we go in, and then we've actually got a starting point with some content, with some extra, with some instructions. The tags thing is clear now anyway, we're explaining that, because otherwise that's a bit of a hidden feature at the minute, unless you know. And then this is great, because you can then come in and you can see what your paper is already before you start. You can see how to lay it out, and immediately start to think about how you structure things. And I think we've got the same thing now from here, that anytime we create a new project, we've got this same workflow. Where we'll go and provision something to give you some inspiration or to give you an idea of how to lay out whatever you're trying to build. This one, we still got to get some content in.
Yeah, it's basically just
we add that
very, very brief outline.
Yeah. Cool. And then this will be even more effective when we get a full project export and be able to get that all into a single PDF or LaTeX or Word file.
Yeah, this sort of multi. I think there's a lot of use cases for that, both in the thesis, in a Jupyter book exports, just other textbook resources, just being able to export in one go. Super cool.
Is there other things happening? I mean, that's a huge amount of changes anyway to put all that in place. But around that, we've been fixing bugs and doing things. Yeah, this has been the big part.
And getting some more templates, more exports.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. I feel like that's going to be starting to come back into swing in well, next week, I suppose.
Yeah. And I'm going out and asking people as well. I'd really like to be able to, aim at things that people are going to busy with or going to use.
Is that one of the questions that you're asking?
Yeah. I mean, emailing
That's
people,
awesome.
and I'm sort of adding that to that. But mind you, I'm quite keen to go out and start trying to talk to people about archive and about the preprints, because the preprint services have such loose specs on what the formats are. And I haven't gone through them all yet. The bioarchive, Earth Archive, and the archive do. With them, it's more about, if you read their guidelines and stuff, it's more about having the corresponding author on.
Yeah.
Coming back and adding the DOI for the real thing, the peer review thing once it's published, and other sort of rules and guidance around that. Earth Archive insists there be specific header text included or footer text on the page to highlight that it hasn't been peer reviewed yet, and it's more things, it's more rules like that rather than a very prescriptive format. So I think already people can do a huge amount in terms of getting a preprint out fast without there being more templates added, and we're going to add the user options soon. So you'll be able to add in information like corresponding author and stuff like that on export. And then there's already in a preprint world pretty much everything you need.
Yep.
In terms of getting it out.
I'm like one of the things that I'm cheering on is like what is the I mean, this is a bigger, more philosophical science question, actually, is what's the next large steps for this scientific publishing ecosystem? That, like, I feel like there should be, at least in my opinion, the swing towards preprints being the primary best in class piece, and maybe they're verified or something by like downstream, and that's like there's services that are able to do that, and journals are one of them at the moment. Is they offer certification and curation as well, and those are basically the two valuable services that they are offering. And so, like, well, I don't know. I feel like it would be nice if the open science infrastructure was as good for preprints or scientific blog articles or that sort of stuff as it is for like a journal article, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The infrastructure.
I think Aaron's coming in. You want to let him in? Or am I hosting?
I let him in.
Hello, Aaron.
Hi.
How are you? I'm good. How are things going?
Things are going well. Things are going well. We are right in the middle of a lockdown.
Oh.
In Finland. So it gives me a little bit of time to explore, and I'm mighty pleased with what I'm seeing with their Curvenote. It's absolutely fantastic, and I will be onboarding a couple of students to get to use them, and so that's be something that's really useful for us.
Yeah, and I think both Steve and I responded to that on the thread on Slack, and so we're more than happy to jump in there, especially at maybe a bit later of a time for you guys, because I think it's 7 a.m. there.
Yeah, at the moment it's 7:40 a.m. Yeah,
7:40. Yeah, so we can do something that's a little friendlier for your students.
That would be really nice. That would be really nice, because I was quite pleased to see that even our studio now supports Jupyter Notebooks. So what happens then is this, that you can connect the two together. Mm-hmm. So and that I think is a massive improvement in many senses, because you can create say a bit text file on the fly in our studio document, yeah, and pull it directly into Curvenote. And Curvenote has got this absolutely first-class writing environment, and we can weave in the Jupyter Notebook here, and it makes life so much more easier. That you can do a lot.
That's fantastic. Yeah, one of the things that I've been playing around with, well, I don't know, working on, is word export, because I think that was one of the other things that you had mentioned early on, is a lot of your colleagues are using Word documents for their primary writing environment.
Yeah. And I think at the moment the workaround, I mean, although I don't use that much, I use LaTeX and PDF, but most people would like to use see them exported as Word document, and that's fine. Which means that if somehow we can weave in something like FanDock within Curvenote, then that would be a win-win for everyone, because you can import Word and format it. You can export to Word. You can do whatever you like, across X number of different, formats. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like the RStudio world has certainly gone down the FanDock road significantly. We're working with the Executable Books project. I'm not sure if you've heard of.
Is it on Jupyter Books?
Jupyter Books, yeah. It's sort of the organization or semi-organization behind Jupyter Book.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And so they've.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear what one day we may do.
Oh, I was saying that what happened to Jupyter Lite and integrating Jupyter directly within.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Steve's working on. That I think basically 20% of your time is working on Phoebe, which is bringing a kernel directly inside of a Curvenote, or well, any sort of static web page.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and that can be on Binder. Well, that currently is for sort of Binder, local, and stuff like that. But then, yeah, what we want to look at is getting that to hook up to Jupyter Lite. And then it's just active on page and fast.
Have you considered integrating GitHub into a Git repo into Curvenote?
Yes.
That is
many times. I think, I think, and we're still a little torn on exactly how to do it, because I think there's still a lot that I think should be maintained as sort of the responsibility of a Git or GitHub repo, and then there's some responsibilities that Curvenote can take over in terms of the writing, and that split on version control is something that we've, well, I don't know, I suppose been struggling with exactly where that seam goes. Because it's like, if you're choosing a version control system, you almost like need to go all in on that. And so that's been a little difficult. One of the pieces that Steve has looked into is DVC, or data version control. And they have I think a model of how to do that well. I don't know, Steve, if you have any other thoughts on that.
We had sort of a meta system where Git ignores the data repo in your repository locally, but then DVC is hooked up to a backend, and DVC takes care of the data snapshotting and maintains a sort of meta information folder, in your repo, and then that's what goes into Git. So you need to be in this workflow in terms of versioning, committing to DVC, and then sort of seeding that with a Git commit into your repo. And it's it's the Git repo that sort of tracks the master.
Yes. So that,
versions.
so that's and
Which is
one
really,
other thing. Sorry, go ahead. One other thing that I was thinking is that whether there is a possibility of having an offline version of Curvenote, which means that if I'm working online, my connection goes off, then I can switch, keep working in Curvenote as offline, and then when the connection comes on, I do not lose any work. Is that possible?
Yeah.
At some point?
it's possible. The text there, because I mean, service workers in the modern browsers, that's what they're designed to do. I guess is the amount of but it depends what you put in there. I guess there's going to be limiting questions around storage and how much you actually storage, and then how that is then synced and reconciled against what's back in the project.
I mean, the local storage.
In terms of browser local storage has more limitations on it than like an installed app like Slack or something like that, or VS Code for that matter, which has access then to the file system. I think one of the one of the movements we will probably make, and this is me speaking a little off the cuff, is moving towards that Git workflow where you do have like more of your documents local and then syncing them either periodically or working collaboratively with other people on Curvenote, and then syncing them back and in sort of like being able to have that offline workflow and potentially working in Markdown at first, at least, in when you're actually working locally.
That's fantastic.
And that workflow is exactly what is happening in the Jupyter Notebook integration. Is all of your work is local. You can choose to work completely offline, and then when you come online, you can sync similar to Git.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, in Jupyter, of course, you can sync with your, you can specify Git repo, and then you can work from there directly. So it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Although from my experience of working with the Jupyter Notebooks and GitHub, it can become very messy. Keeping your IPYNB files in GitHub repo can be very problematic. There have been issues with their versioning.
Yeah. Which gets worse with outputs.
Yeah, I could never understand why this is the case, because they are nothing but basic JSON files, but probably there's more to it.
Yeah, well, I think that's basically
the JSON files,
and then
which is
code,
one thing.
And Git just cares about line diff, so you can have the way that it merges doesn't respect the structure of a JSON file. Git doesn't have any concept of JSON, so it can't actually merge it like in quotes properly.
And then because there's lots of other things in that file structure, for no apparent change to your notebook on the surface when it's rendered, you can have UIIDs, all sorts of little hex codes and things changing and causing unintended conflicts and diffs when you think you've got the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's right. And that's something that needs to be kept into mind when you port something like that into a structure such as Curvenote. And we discussed this earlier when we saw that you can render some part of a notebook that does not automatically render similarly in Curvenote notebooks. For example, tables and HTML outputs from some of the
The
chunks
things are
from the-
different.
No, yeah.
Yeah. I think we have to work on getting that all in sync and extend the types of outputs that we can render.
Mm.
I think fundamentally though, the thing about putting in Curvenote is that Curvenote understands the JSON structure. It understands so when we version, we do version on the appropriate information in the data fields. Yeah.
Right.
And currently we stamp the version information into the iPy notebook itself, which is fine because then it's portable, it goes with it. But that's the only place we stamp it. So we couldn't do something along the lines of the DVC model at the moment. But that's one of the things we've been considering, is having like a .curvenote folder, or actually centralizing and maintaining the version information about what's in the whole folder separately. And then if we start to do that, then we're able to then do a similar thing to the DVC, where you could tell Git to ignore your IPython notebooks because they're in Curvenote.
Yeah.
And you could have the Curvenote command line, which only does a push and a latex pull at the moment. But imagine that would allow you to do the commit to Curvenote, and then you do the commit to the Git in the same way in order to stamp that metadata with all the Curvenote and the notebook versions. So I can see a similar workflow working. Mm.
Yeah, but that's interesting, and we'll probably need a little bit more handholding for some people, so that the merge conflicts and things like that can be resolved easily. Because
and the branching strategy, which
the branching, I was going to say that,
or forking strategy, because that's it. As soon as Git starts, as soon as we are integrated completely and working alongside Git, if Git's branching, you need to be able to branch.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to be able to separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can sometimes create a lot of headache and anxiety for many people in terms of no,
I completely agree with that. I feel like this is like one of the pieces where I've worked with a lot of folks who just like you check out something else and all of your files seem to disappear on your computer, and you freak out that things are different. So if you're not familiar with Git, it's a big learning curve to get there. Yeah.
I mean, I from what I gather is this, that even when Git will be incorporated, even in Curvenote, it will be kind of an optional feature of people to turn it on and then turn it off, because as it is, Curvenote gives you a good version control of the document spaces. Speaking of which, we see that there is a project level versioning, and then there's a block level versioning within the projects, isn't it? So which means that the project version and the block versions can differ. But and one of the things that I had was that I have, and you talked about that, Rowan, as well, is that I started working on a document, then invited a colleague to come and join me, and then I found that the document was gone, and I was wondering where had gone. If it just disappeared, and I could not find it from any previous versioning or whatever it was. It could have been a bug. It could have been an error. It could also be that I was neglecting in saving it. So I'm just wondering if there is any provision for auto saving of the blocks, and then when somebody exits the browser, does it auto save? It probably doesn't, does it?
It does, in terms of that draft as you're typing. after every sort of keystroke, as it were, that's then in the database.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, as you're working inside of Curvenote on curvenote.com, it's a collaborative real-time editor, and so every time you're typing, it's actually communicating, similar to how Google Docs works. And so that sometimes does break, although it's much rarer these days. If it does break, there's like the bottom bar goes red, and it goes red within about like 6 characters or 10 characters. So that is a little bit of an alert to you, like if that does happen, that something's gone wrong, and it won't be able to save it.
and then refreshing the page should get you back into a good state.
Yeah.
Without those 6 characters or whatever.
Yeah, no, I have observed something interesting, which I probably should tell you. Is just that I work, on Curvenote in both Brave and Vivaldi browser.
Yep.
Brave, it works seamlessly. There's no problem at all. It's just like, regular working. With Vivaldi, I have seen that it becomes quite slow, and then the thing that you just mentioned, Rowan, that the bottom bar becomes orange and it comes back, and orange and comes back, and that kind of stuff happens. I'm just wondering whether that has to do with the Chrome rendering, but it's probably not. So it's more, it is a browser issue. It has got nothing to do with Curvenote, but I think that I could bring to your attention that
I've never.
in some browsers, the rendering of the text on Curvenote is not the same. So, for example, when I'm working in with Vivaldi in Linux and in Windows, yeah, not much of a problem. Vivaldi on Mac, it gives me that thing, like it kind of becomes red and then goes away and things like that. And it's quite slow to be, but I think that's more to do with Vivaldi on Mac, not so much to do with Curvenote, because Curvenote is a web app, nothing more, nothing less, isn't it?
I'm just looking at what Vivaldi uses as their renderer. I've never heard of Vivaldi before.
Okay. Maybe I can send you a link to the Vivaldi browser. There's a pretty.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely found it. Okay, they use Opera, it looks like. Oh no,
yeah,
they
the
are
old
Chromium.
Opera. But then they've moved them to the Chromium base now.
Okay. Yep. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's Vivaldi is certainly not something that we test on regularly, but it does seem that if it's based on Chromium, I'm surprised that there's a noticeable slowdown.
Yeah, but that's because Vivaldi's own a number of applications and plugins, and it's a pretty big browser in that sense. It's not a stripped down version like you'd expect Brave or probably plain Google Chrome or even Chromium for that matter might be. So that may be the reason.
Okay,
that's more for Vivaldi devs than use.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think that the big takeaway there is if the bar is going orange or red, it's having trouble with the network connectivity. And then if it says saved, it exists on our server. And so there is a way to get that information back if you can't find it through the UI.
Was it content within a document or an entire document? As an entire document went and it was no longer in the left-hand side bar either?
No, not like that.
No, it was content.
I could set it up on the left-hand side, but I could not find the block. I mean, the content in the block was gone. So that, yeah, so the content was still intact, and that didn't happen for everything. So for example, I uploaded a bunch of links as a separate document in my in the project. They were conserved, but the ones that I was working on as a text, which I kind of copy pasted from a Word document directly into the block, and I was working on that bit was gone.
Okay.
But that only happened once. But once I started saving different versions, the problem disappeared.
Yeah, yesterday I was also finding some bugs on copying and pasting large pieces of text into Curvenote, and they're, well, I don't know, the way the system's designed is for that very small, chatty, like real-time connectivity. So some of the ways that we're using that for large pastes of text, it breaks down. And so that's something that I need to take a look into. So if that's what you ran into, that could be the issue.
Yes, well, on that occasion, I was not copy pasting a large block, but it was I think 1 or 2 pages of Word document text that I copied and pasted as plain text, which means that devoid of all formats and stuff like that. But Word notorious in terms of how it renders its XML. It's not the best thing in the world, but unfortunately we are kind of stuck, a lot of us.
They
can't think beyond Word. It's
I reacquired a Word license 2 weeks ago. To start testing the Word export capabilities that we're working on.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, that's right. That's fine. So that's
coming.
One of the other things that I wanted to ask you is that Steve this morning or yesterday mentioned in your tweet, I think, on Curvenote, that even if somebody does not use Jupyter, Curvenote can be a good editor in many sense. I mean, we always knew that, but is there something new that we don't know that has happened in the latest version?
I would think so. Well, when I was speaking specifically there is, I think previously our website and sometimes came across very strong that it was about Jupyter. And for a lot of time when we talked to people, they thought it was a data science notebook and in the cloud, and didn't realize it was a strong writing tool in its own right. So I guess my tweet was just trying to reinforce that. But I think as well, it's because the writing features have come a long way, and we're quite far through our list of things before we feel that it's a fully featured editor. Tables and references still to come.
That's right. So that answers my question. That was my question. A feature request is, once we upload a BibTeX file, if it is possible for the user uploading a BibTeX file to see the list of references. Because quite often what happens is that you get duplicate entries. I know that there's an excellent duplicate management within Curvenote. So that is not an issue, but that is not totally transparent to the user. It is, at the moment, it is a Curvenote feature that is not entirely apparent to the user who is uploading, say, a bunch of 5 BibTeX files of people doing that as different users of the system. Then we want to see, okay, what have we uploaded? Now, if I have a copy of the BibTeX on my computer, I can see what I have uploaded, but I don't know what my student has uploaded as well. You see? So when I'm going to write the insert a citation, I can only refer to the ones that I have cited because I know what I have done. But let's say there was a pool of papers that have been uploaded there. That is a pool of references. I would really like to see what else is out there in Curvenote that I can say. Say, for example, I have uploaded Crockett 2021. My student has uploaded Purvis 2021. I do not know that Purvis 2021 is already uploaded in Curvenote, but it is there. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, so that was my question.
Yeah. Within the same project?
In the project, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Because that sits on the project, right? Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. There isn't any clear call to show me my reference list as a thing, but you can get to it in terms of
right.
If you type add reference, even though you don't want to add a reference, then
even though I don't want to add the reference, yes,
you do get a list here of the things that are currently in the project. So
how do you do that?
And that's everyone's as well.
Yeah, that's just / reference, and it says add reference because you can actually choose one of these and insert.
Oh, from there, I see what you mean.
But you do get that list.
Yes, you do get that list when you press that.
Yes. If you're using this, you get a shorter form list also.
Right. No, that's all right. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm asking is this: that a persistent list of references on the left-hand sidebar to say that, look, you guys have uploaded X, Y, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, for example, here.
Yeah, maybe an overkill, but maybe it might be useful for some people to see, okay, these are the ones that I have cited.
Yeah. I mean, also the other thing we're missing that I was putting in manually is the ability to add a block here. Oh, sorry, here, which is add reference block.
Yeah.
In order for me to see the style of reference block that I would get in my LaTeX export, which is the currently cited things. And
change on the fly.
Yeah, depending on built as you go. That's another thing. That's different from what you're saying, but yeah, that type of visibility is.
Yeah.
I see us over time having more of the reference management in a lightweight way, things going on here, so you can at least see and knock out references. Yeah. I imagine. The degree to we go to full editing and things versus integrate with something else, I don't know. But
yeah, the reason why this is this becomes interesting is if somebody has uploaded a poorly formatted reference like Purvis in.d, and then that persists through the system, okay, till somebody corrects that in.d to a new one and then uploads a new reference.
Yeah.
And then that hurts itself, that's fine. But it is the ability to find out that, okay, there are certain things that elements of the referencing that needs fixing is going to be useful for people with a little bit of obsessive compulsive issues with how to write references and citations, not so much for those of us who are more involved with writing the piece and getting all of the things done and then adding the references back. But for the social science types, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, some people get very hung up on the exact references.
Yeah.
So if I were to use it in a classroom, which is my intention, that introduce Curvenote to the classroom and students should write their entire papers and term papers and everything in Curvenote and nothing else. This is a situation that I will be facing. Okay, tell me what is my referencing style. So you write APS7. Well, I don't get to see APS7 when I write it. There is no way I can see this help.
Gotcha.
So, you see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so actually changing the reference style as you're editing the manuscript in Curvenote.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now this isn't even a style of what you're seeing right now. is it's
No.
it's just title and
That's
author
Yeah.
inside of
Yeah,
this. But
That's totally fine. That's fantastic. And particularly encouraging is how you have incorporated the various search engines within it. So you can search DOI, and I think that's been a that's been a killer feature for this.
Yeah. Maybe this should just be references.
yeah, I'm taking
Rather
a
than
bunch of notes. I think we need to show references somewhere, probably on the top toolbar that brings up this panel, and possibly at all times, and then so that you can manage the references, and then just having a little bit more information and the ability to edit and or delete these, I think would go a long way. And also download the whole BibTeX file so that you can edit it even just by text. That would be a start.
Yes, and that becomes useful when people start putting together say meta-analysis or systematic review, start writing them in Curvenote, because that work is totally dependent on finding the correct references, manipulating the references, extracting data from the references, and then working on that. So right from the beginning, people would be using the references as their main source of data for data analysis. And this is, if you're doing a meta-analysis on a particular topic, then that becomes your main objective of manipulating the references to do that. And so that's where it becomes really important that if I can have a list of references handy, such that if I upload a BibTeX file together with, say, even abstract information and everything else that's been written there, and then that shows in a side panel, or that shows, or there's a toggle feature that says that, okay, look, click to view references. And I say, these are references that you have at the moment. Then I do not need these references, and I can put the classification and things like that. Then that becomes easy for anybody to manipulate those references and bring them in. But that becomes I don't think any editor does that at the moment. But that's all right. Curvenote is not like any other editor.
So you're talking about having like basically a split screen such that you have more detailed information on one side, such that you can start pulling them in and doing, and you're talking about doing analysis or adding and pulling in information from those references.
Having quick access to them.
If I were to dock this floating window somewhere, play with it. That's all, probably.
And maybe sort of click to expand because you want to see more information on it and drill down. Maybe see the art, maybe see the abstract.
If it is needed. I mean, if it's desired by the user. If not, that doesn't matter, because basically you just need the minimal information in terms of the author year for the citation, and then those things. Except if you wanted to write an annotated bibliography, then reference manipulation is your most important activity at that point. But that's a different kettle of fish.
Interesting.
And an annotated bibliography, is list reference have some paragraphs?
Right. List reference, right, to have a commentary on that. And then move on to the reference. Let's say you get 10 references in which you are going to write a piece on each. Not quite an analysis work, but it's kind of basically a list of references. Then you put that in. Nothing changes. I mean, it's nothing like you can't do that. You can jolly well do that right now here in Curvenote exactly as you want. It's probably it's really cherry on top in the sense that, okay, now I have got a docked window where I can see all the references listed, and then I can pick and choose and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, it's nothing. It's not a feature that you must absolutely have. It's good to have.
Cherry on top features. Yeah.
Cherry on top.
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, I'll see if I can find something, because I've found some very nice other note-taking tools around the internet that do that sort of docking well, and they allow you to have multiple articles basically up at the same time and transfer between them.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that we could potentially do in Curvenote quite well. And so you have your references up on the right hand side as sort of a first class citizen, or your Jupyter Notebook on one side, and dragging things in between your various
yeah. So your each of your reference becomes a block in itself that you can yeah.
And I think that's actually like quite intriguing, because that block can have information such as the PDF that it came from, or a link to it on the internet somewhere, as well as what you were saying for this sort of annotated bibliography of actually like writing your notes freeform on that specifically.
Yeah. And you know what can be really useful is if we can somehow manipulate the Zotero API, say for example, and then connect Curvenote to Zotero. Yeah. So then what happens is people don't have to download the Zotero list of references as a BibTeX file and then upload it. Yeah, because as Curvenote will go mainstream, more and more people, you will find more and more users who do not like to use BibTeX at all. I mean, I even have a hard time in convincing our librarian at the university to use BibTeX. So people don't understand those things, but what they will understand is connect to Zotero. Boom. Yeah, Zotero get connected, and then you say, right, bring in that information in Zotero to here. So that also reduces the data overload on Curvenote itself, because the references are kept in Zotero. All you need is connecting with the API, bring in that reference and work. So, and then as and when needed, on the fly, just in time, Curvenote compiles the BibTeX to create the separate references.
Yep, absolutely. That's the dream.
Yeah, that's a dream. Yeah, good.
Yeah. I can't find it right now. But I'll find the user interface that I really enjoyed.
I can remember it.
Send
yeah.
it. Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called.
I have no idea what it was called. Awesome. Well, thanks for. I have to head to another meeting, Aaron. So but it was wonderful for you to jump in, and
thank you.
And let us know. I'm away next week, and I'm probably in a better place to give a later in the day tutorial than Steve is, because I think it's almost midnight where Steve is.
Ooh.
Half 9.
Oh, never mind. He has tons of time. So.
But just let us know.
Yeah. Just ping me on Slack when you want an overview, and I'm happy to walk through and show some of the workflows.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get in touch with you all and do it. Right. Thank you very much.
Great.
Yeah,
have a good day.
Have a good day.
You too. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Yeah. All right.
Bye-bye.
Sleep, Steve.